Women Innovators. Interviews with women with big messages and big missions, sharing their stories to inspire you to live your passion and step up to make the world a better place. Here's your host, Tami Patzer.
Hi, everyone. This is Tami Patzer, and I'm really excited because today's guest is Julie Steelman, and she is a financial visionary, wealth coach, and selling expert. And she also is the host of Called by Financial Freedom podcast. Let me tell you a little bit about Julie. She's the CEO and founder of the Financial Freedom Institute, and she is known by her clients as a financial visionary, wealth coach, and selling expert. Her intriguing and innovative approach to helping pioneering entrepreneurial women change their financial destiny has resulted in her clients being able to design sustainable business models, generating healthy cash flow, and building wealth. And I like healthy cash flow. And she has authored the highly praised book, The Effortless Yes. And she has more than 25 years in a career as an iconic corporate brand salesperson. And she uses her master's degree in spiritual psychology to translate her award-winning wildlife photography into teaching metaphors. So welcome, Julie.
Thank you. It's fun to be here. I can't wait to see what we cook up today.
Yeah. Well, you said something in your bio that I think is fascinating, because whenever people are visionaries, there's two schools of thought on that. It means that you really have something that is unique and open, and you bring insight, or some back in the day it meant that you were visionary. So that I laugh about that word just because it has so many different meanings. But in this sense, I'm sure that it's meant for good, because you're actually helping women to see that they need to understand that it's okay to be wealthy, right?
I think the visionary part of it for me is that women come to me, and my clients come to me, and they're struggling, a lot of them with profit and with pricing, like real world business problems. And I can see a through line for them given the high service that they're called into. And most women just can't even envision or allow themselves to entertain that, because there's so many misinterpretations and beliefs about women and not being good with money, and it's not okay to ask for money, and it's rude and impolite and it's unholy and all that stuff, right? And so there's this thing that happens for me in that way where I can see where it is they want to go and how to help them get there. And so that's a lot of what that means. I know it's kind of it's a unique pairing of words.
Well, you just said a literal mouthful there about how a lot of people, especially women, deal with money. Like you said, it's rude to ask for money.
Rude to ask for money.
How can I ask for that much money when it only took me 15 minutes to do? How could I command that much? Or if you come out of the hourly wage earner, where maybe the most you ever earned was $15 an hour, and then all of a sudden you're an entrepreneur and what you're doing is worth hundreds of dollars. And you have that internal struggle of, how can I ask for this much money because it didn't take me much time? And I know personally I deal with that a lot, because most of the time I don't charge enough. My very first project I ever did, I charged $250, and I made the guy a video.
Wow.
I did a photo shoot, and I gave him like a month's worth of social media for $250.
Oh, if I only knew you then.
And now I look at that and I said, oh my goodness, no wonder these people jumped on it, because it literally was the bargain of a century.
Yeah.
That $250 investment that person made earned him $5,000.
Exactly.
So that was a really good investment for him. So what is it about women that makes them have such a hard time with money and the concept of charging fair rates for what they're providing?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a complex problem, actually. I think we get modeled and told things, especially certain generations, about our worth and what roles we actually play. And we haven't been in the workforce in a fully robust way for that long of a time. And it's always been that it wasn't okay to talk about money, to focus on money, or ask for money. It's okay if men do it. It wasn't okay if women did it. It wasn't perceived as feminine. You thought you would be judged as assertive or aggressive. And there's this fear. A lot of women have this very real fear that if they actually ask for what they're worth, the first problem is they don't know how to actually accurately evaluate what they're worth, what their work is worth, let's say. Part of it is that the phrasing always has us in the center of it, as if it's about us. When we're in business for ourselves, or entrepreneurs or coaches or mentors, we're selling a result. We're the one that helps facilitate and deliver that, but all of the languaging around it is that we're selling us. In a way we are, but at the end of the day, what that does is set us up for taking the whole thing personally and personalizing what it is, whether someone says yes or whether they say no. And it's really about advocating for possibility so the client could see what's possible for them through the work we deliver, but it's about the work delivering a result, and that's what we're really selling. So there needs to be a reframe around what are we really offering, and then taking ourselves out of the center of that, because we'll never feel. You could go take all the self-worth classes and valuing classes and confidence classes on the planet, but what you just said earlier is the point. When we realize what the benefit of our work does and the ripple effect of that, that's what we're valuing, not us, right? So for $250, he made $5,000. That's a significant return on investment. And immediately, I'm going to guess that you lit up and went, I didn't charge enough for that. Because you understood the value once you saw how it benefited him. That's the correct point to evaluate the value we're offering as business people with an offer, right? So that gets all muddled, how to do that correctly, which is why 90% of entrepreneurial women actually have a profit problem. And there's all these belief systems from our parents, from our family, from society about how women are supposed to behave. And there's a whole set of that around how women are supposed to behave in relationship to money. So we inherited a lot of things without ever really checking out those assumptions to see if they're real or not.
So one of the things that you said is really interesting to me. And it's funny because just this morning I was having a conversation about valuation.
Yes.
Because I'm actually trying to set the prices for some high level projects. And the conversation was about how do you evaluate or show the result of something. And I would like you to explain that a little bit, because it's top of mind. How do you take something, for example, I help people become international bestsellers, for example.
Right.
So how do I put a value on something that is forever? Once you become this best-selling author and you're able to say this is who you are, you have that authority and credibility and it helps you have more influence. How do you put a value on something like that?
Yeah, in a way, it's a super nebulous question. In another way, there's a lot of benchmarks or signposts that you can look at. And one of my favorite stories that I heard when I was in Amsterdam, we were touring the museums, and a docent shared a story about Picasso. And he was in one of the local bars, and he had done a little drawing on a cocktail napkin. And a woman was looking over his shoulder, and she asked him, "That's beautiful. Can I buy that? I would love to have it." And he said, "Sure." And she said, "How much?" And he said, $20,000. And she sat back and she went, "Well, don't you think that's a little expensive for a cocktail napkin?" And he laid his pen and brush down, and he turned and he looked at her, and he said, "I've prepared my whole life for this moment and for this sketch. It didn't just happen in this minute. It's been coming to me since I was born." And so I love that framing of, we forget about how much forework we've done, how much we've studied, how much we know, how much we've synthesized, right, for our clients, because we can see more for them than they can see for themselves. And so all of those things get factored into valuing. So I think it really comes down to looking at the practical side, which is, how much money and at what prices will you get to keep some that will give you more than enough, so that you become that your business carries you through, that it's sustainable and healthy and profitable for you, because then you can keep serving at the highest level when your financial needs are met, right? And so there's that part of it. You need to understand how to set your prices so that you're taken care of. And then you need to look at the sort of more what I would call ethereal or nebulous side of it, which is, what do they get out of it? If they become a best-selling author, that's a lifetime legacy. And if it's international, that's a global legacy, and that lives on. You get to say that forever. That's almost a strong credential, almost equivalent to being a doctor. Like, that immediately is a brand builder, a reputation solidifier, right? If you're a highly praised, successful, published author internationally, right? That changes the game on how people perceive you. And so you got to look at those things that are not measurable but are powerful, right? And then it takes some time to put the two things together. I think being coached around it is one of the best ways to do it, because you need to be reflected back to about what market will bear, what's the sweet spot, and be really willing to take a stand for that value. Because you're not selling a price. If you were selling a price, you'd be selling cars with lease payments. That's why that whole model of cars with lease payments was invented, so that people would buy based on a monthly price a car they couldn't afford on their own if it wasn't on a lease, right? Because it assumes at some point you give me the car back. It's really a glorified rental. And so we're not in the business of selling payments. You're in the business of building longevity, legacy, and reputations, right? That would be how I would value it. Does that make sense?
Yes, and it really helps to clarify. I'm sitting here and I'm chuckling because that's $250.
Yeah.
And that $5,000, by the way, he made in a week. Okay.
And then it's, what did that $5,000 turn into from there? See, there's a big ripple effect to take into account.
Right. But what you're saying makes a lot of sense, because so often these people, they'll come to you and they're saying, well, I really don't have this money, blah, blah, blah. And so
it's never about the money.
I think that women, especially when somebody cries to us with this so-called problem, we automatically go, well, I can sacrifice, in order to help that person, and that's another part of it, about how often women, you said it, we are in business.
Yes.
And if we don't charge enough, then how are we going to have a sustainable business? Like, for example, to get through COVID or some other disaster or moment in time, because many people are finding, and this is a really good example, that this COVID knocked them on their rears because they weren't prepared.
That's right.
Because they didn't charge enough. They didn't have healthy cash flow, and they certainly didn't have a healthy savings account. And so that's why what you're talking about is so important. So you have your Called by Financial Freedom podcast, and of course you help people with their wealth. So can anyone become wealthy? Is there some magical secret to becoming wealthy?
I think anyone can become wealthy. And wealthy is not an idea of what you see out in the world, like so-and-so who has billions or has a house on the Amalfi Coast or whatever. And that's fine too. But it's about really clarifying what your vision of that is. And then being so committed to it, to discovering what way that can open up for you, that you're really willing to surrender to the leadership of that. And I'm not talking about just the money. I'm talking about what will take you there. And typically what will take us there has everything to do with our vision and our calling. And that really, I was a child at 7 years old watching Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom every single Sunday night. And I knew without a shadow of a doubt, I needed to go to Africa before I died. And it was like, clear the decks. My whole life, and my whole life still is about that. That's how I know, because it's stuck. My whole life was about that. And what it did is it opened up this huge golden through line for me of what classes I took in college, how I ended up in corporate and retiring at 47 at the young age, financially free, was because I wanted the time and the money to be able to travel like I wanted to and to be in the wild and be in the bush. And it was like, everybody has one of those in them, a kind of dream, a kind of vision, that's something that's critically important to them. And so I believe that your wealth quotient is directly related to that because there's a destiny piece in that. There's a fulfillment in that. What journey that took me on would take me days of podcasts to explain all of. But suffice it to say, it brought me my great love. It brought me living in Hawaii, financially free at 47. All those kinds of things, retiring from corporate. I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. That wasn't likely. And so what we want to do by really cultivating what our vision for wealth is, like if we could have it be something that was so fulfilling and so morally honorable and engaging and would support us in our life, then we can find that way through. And I think everybody has that in them, whatever that means to them. And everybody has their own definition of what that looks like. It's more of an experience and a consciousness than it is of a bank balance.
So right now, with so many people, that I see this time that we're in right now is like opportunity.
It's screaming.
Like knock, 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 knock. Pay attention.
Yeah.
But there's other people who are like, see it as, oh my God, struggle, struggle, struggle.
Right.
So what are the opportunities that you are seeing during this time that we're in right now?
I love that you asked this. I did a whole show called Pandemic or Paradigm Shift. And I think it's a paradigm shift. And I always think one of these we talked about earlier, which is so many people and entrepreneurial women have gotten knocked on their fanny. And that's because they're in this business model of where they think it's supposed to be hard. And so they continually set themselves up for cash flow crunches instead of some immunization and some cash flow buildup and reserves, right? In a healthy business model where you're immune to global economic shifts, at least for a longer time than a week or 3 months. Right? Let's say you're healthy, your cash flow is healthy enough to carry you for 6 to 9 months at a minimum, right? And so now there's this awareness around that. And even personally, financially, people have been acting like, the way they're living their life is like, make it, spend it, make it, spend it, make it, spend it. And our society in America very much fosters that thinking. And so we want to step out of these group ideas about money and hardship and scarcity. There's more than enough money on the planet for everybody to have more than enough money. And so if you can get to that place, the difference between someone who's broke and struggling and someone who's super wealthy that believes that philanthropy is their sole focus in life, the big key distinction inwardly, the differences between those people, the wealthy perceive themselves as having all the choices, and the broke perceive themselves as having no choices. That has nothing to do with net worth or bank account balance or investments. That is everything to do with a perception, right? And so I think that this time, what it did is it shook up your baseline and it got you off autopilot. And so now what are you going to do to set the course for how you want your life to really be? Because now's the time to do that. I even heard someone say something as radical as get conscious or get off the planet. Like kind of that's kind of really radical, right? And I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying that there's a context here. What are you going to do with it? You're going to complain and whine and keep doing what you've been doing, or you're going to do something different and rise up and elevate and take on a new perspective.
It's funny because when you said that, get conscious of the planet.
I know that's a radical statement.
That is very radical and bold, but sometimes, it's almost like somebody's like, hey, wake up, and this has been, I think, a wake up call.
Yeah.
And it really has, not to make a mask pun, but pulled the mask off to reveal how sick our economy is for the average person.
Yes.
And how many people are, like you said, it's make it, spend it, make it, spend it. And all it took was a couple weeks and people were like, I cannot pay my rent. I can't pay my mortgage. I can't buy groceries. And it just proves that, we really are at that place where we need to step back and grasp the opportunities of whatever that opportunity might be for you, because that's what that I notice about certain people and this mindset, like what you're talking about, with women, especially because like you said, it's rude to ask for money. You can't charge that. What do you mean $15 an hour, and all the controversy that people are going through just based on the concept, the literal idea of when you go become an entrepreneur and you have to go from that hourly rate to, making whatever it is. And you're absolutely right. We live in this abundant world.
Yes.
And there's plenty for everyone. Everybody could have everything that they could ever imagine financially and spiritually and everything. But it's like people are trained, to not expect more than just enough to get by. I know people who, if they get more than enough to get by, it's like, oh my God.
They start giving it away. Yeah. It's like, oh no. Yeah. I know.
Right now, as a woman, are you seeing that more and more women are starting to take control of their own financial destinies? Because I've been it's been me for a long, long time where I was the sole breadwinner and other people, though, I notice, sometimes they'll say, oh, well, I have to ask my husband or my partner or my business partner or somebody else. They're always going, well, I have to ask. And so I don't always know what to say about that because I'm like, well, gee, if you want it, you should be able to get whatever you want without asking other people. But again, that's just me. So as a woman today, what should I be thinking about or focused on so that I can make sure that I'm not only providing for myself, but leaving, everybody wants to leave some type of legacy and do good things.
Yeah.
Because if we don't have any money, we can't go out there and do all these good things to help people, because it does take a lot more than good thoughts to help, especially like, for example, feed the children. Somebody's got to figure out how to pay for all of the transportation and the money part of things.
Yes. Yeah. First of all, and it's such an interesting question. First of all, I think women and entrepreneurial women have an incredible opportunity right now, because spouses or family members or husbands in corporate jobs or other type of more, quote, traditionally reliable positions, that ground is on shifting sands and it hasn't settled yet. And so they have the most upside potentially to really grow and develop their business and do it in a healthy way. And that there's so much opportunity now online and so much need. And with these women who do this work that are so heart-centered and caring and conscious, there's a really big need for them to be putting their offers and their work into the world, especially at this time where if you don't like the word consciousness because it feels too woo-woo or spiritual for you, then trade it out for conscientiousness. Let's go there. What if we're more intentionally conscientious about how we live, how we are, and the way we do things, and our cash flow, and our businesses, and our pricing? And I think what's at the center of all of this, why I was called out of retirement to do this work, is I want every woman to know that this is about well-being, right? Money's involved, yes, but there's a lot of other things that are involved. And it's really, if you look at, are you running your business in a healthy way? Are you burning yourself out? Are you going through power surges to just make some cash flow for now so you can take a breather for a day and then do it all over again? That creates a cycle of cash flow crunches. It doesn't carry you through, which is what you want. Is sustainability, is something that carries you through. It's a flow. It's ongoing, right? It's like a river. It doesn't dry up. And so I think the first thing is to shift yourself to really start asking yourself, what's in service to my well-being? Because when I'm in good shape, everybody else around me gets better from me. My family, my clients, my husband, my circle of care is in much better shape when I'm taken care of. And so women forget to take up residence in their own heart first. And I think that's the starting place. I think the next thing is to really evaluate your pricing. Does your pricing allow you to be well paid for the value that you provide, which we talked about that earlier, some quick ways to evaluate that value? And is there room in that pricing for some philanthropy or some charity or some donating? Is there room in that pricing for you to save, invest, or pay off something? That would be the wealth building piece, right? And so I think pricing has to be healthy at the bottom, has to have wealth building in it, and has to allow you some philanthropy or charity. Then you're on the money with a healthy profit price, right? Do those couple of things, because those are in service to your well-being. Because if you're not making enough money off of what you sell to be able to do any of your philanthropy, it's not going to feel as satisfying to you as it could.
That makes a lot of sense, because I think that that's some of the missing pieces when people are trying to figure out their pricing.
Yeah.
Especially when they're new.
Yeah.
And there's that mind shift that has to happen when you've been an employee.
Yeah.
You've been told.
That's another autopilot in a way. Yeah.
Because I came from the newspaper business where I was mid-level management in Florida, meaning low wages.
Right.
You know what that is.
Right.
And then, so it's like, well, when I was working as an hourly employee, I made, $16 an hour and I was supervising 10 people. And those are actually real numbers back in 2007. And I think back at that and it's like, well, yeah, you were really underpaid for what
Right.
you were doing.
Yeah.
And then we also forget about all of the things that the employer puts into the mix, like insurance and all of the different things.
Oh, yeah.
But there's that mind shift that you have to go through from that hourly rate to being an entrepreneur. So how do you work with people to get them shifted and to start thinking about these things?
Yeah, I have a program and a course, and I work with people privately, and we really look at there's three primary things or belief systems. There's the belief that how much I make should determine my success. And the truth is it's how much you keep. And so how much you make, no matter if it's 6-7 figures and you keep going up, but you don't keep any of it, isn't going to feel sustainable, isn't going to feel satisfying, and isn't going to feel successful. So that's one of them. And then the whole idea around I can't charge more prices or my clients will go away has everything to do with a belief system that has you leaving money on the table and not charging healthy profit pricing. Right. And so I really look at where's the leak in the whole cash flow system that isn't allowing you to build wealth, that isn't allowing you healthy pricing, and isn't allowing you to make a healthy profit so that you can do the good work in the world that you want to do, but also keep yourself in good shape. And get out of the whole having to just constantly work and reinvent and relaunch and keep putting stuff out there, right? It's like, let's make it scalable, relatable, saleable, and talking about money, the whole thing about it's not okay to talk about money is an entire sales piece that costs women a fortune, period. There's a direct relationship between that belief and not being able to be an effective seller. So you reduce your prices instead.
I'm really glad that we're having this conversation because I'm literally in the process of pricing and valuing things. And the more you talk, the more I say, oh, I think you're still underpricing, even though I increased them. I can see where because of what I do, and it's that lifetime value of something that is really worth a lot, because if you're able to use something forever, and the value of that is substantially higher. It's not like I'm selling something that's going to expire.
No.
I'm selling
status symbol,
authority and status and celebrity.
And believability.
Right. So it's interesting that we're having this conversation today of all days of that. So how exactly do you work with people? Is it courses or coaching?
Yeah, I do both. If people want something, I have a free training that goes into these three belief systems that are costing you sales, not allowing you to set pricing properly, and not having a healthy business model, and how to shift that and do that. They can find that at calledbyfreedom.com. And there's a free training. They can opt in and watch. And I also work with people in private coaching.
Well, I'm certainly going to go to Called by Financial Freedom and watch that because I think I need to do that before I finalize these prices, right? and so you do the private coaching also.
Yeah.
And what is the best way to get in contact with you?
The best way would be either on social media. Obviously, it's at my name so that I'm easy to find. And you can also go to Julie Steelman, STEELMAN.com and find me there.
Okay. And you're on LinkedIn?
I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram. I'm much more active on Facebook and Instagram.
Okay. Yeah. Well, LinkedIn, it's one of those sites that I notice that most people, they go there every now and then. but they're
Right.
not active. Like
Yeah.
Facebook, Instagram is more real-time activity. So tell me a little bit more about your podcast. I'm interested in that also.
Yeah, so my podcast called By Financial Freedom is really for entrepreneurial women who they consider themselves very aligned with the divine feminine. They're conscious, they're caring, they're very called into high service. And so the word call is very important in that name. And the freedom piece of it is, yeah, there's the money, but it's also about getting really free of the limitations and the belief systems and the old narratives and stories that have kept women disempowered in regards to relationship with money, wealth, and prosperity and how they run their businesses. And so I talk a lot about all of the cash generating aspects of business and get into that, but I do it with a spiritual context and a very feminine context. Because I think it's time. I'm actually in the process of rebranding, and we've come up with a new symbol for money, and I've wanted one for a really long time, because I believe if women can find their power in relationship to money, wealth, and prosperity, then we can be the financial influencers of the world. And that's why I started the podcast. And that's what my mission is to accelerate that and activate that.
Wow, that's really phenomenal. And you really do talk about some pretty phenomenal topics in general. I mean, anytime you're talking about the mix of the feminine, divine, and money and cash flow, and learning how to embrace that prosperity and with the mindset and abundance, that's all very, very powerful. So remind everyone again, the course and where they can find that.
Yeah, so the free training is at calledbyfreedom.com. And you'll see what that's about, and you can opt in, and then you can watch a free training that it'll share my client stories with you of women that have shifted their thinking around, women that have shifted their thinking around their sales story, and one of them generated $250,000 in new business within a week. And another one developed a business model based on some things that I taught her about getting out of these cash flow crunches. And she's now a year away from retiring. She's an online entrepreneur. And it's a great training to really take a look at, especially during this time, of what more you could be doing to support yourself and those in your circle of care. So that's at calledbyfreedom.com. You can also find more out about me, Julie Steelman, either on Facebook or Instagram, or my website, juliesteelman.com. There's a place that you can opt in there and or send us an email if you're interested in private coaching.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. So before I let you go, Julie, if there's one thing that you would like everyone to just really take away from our conversation today, what would that be?
I would say, there's so much I want to say. I'm trying to synthesize. That if you can start to really know yourself as an empowered, active co-creator, you might look at your life and your business and the way you're doing things much differently and operate from there. That will be a game-changing power move that'll make all the difference. And stay out of the fear and the lack and the scarcity. The scarcity is very tricky and insidious. It's like a snake you don't see coming. And it plays a lot in our inner self dialogue. And that a shift in wealth consciousness starts with you seeing yourself as an empowered, active co-creator. And how can you be more in touch with that and be following through on that and listening to that guidance more than you listen to what's happening out in the world?
That's awesome advice. And everyone, I'm going to say, I highly recommend that you download this episode and listen to it over and over again and take notes, because Julie has told you some let's call them truth bombs, like I would put it.
That tends to happen.
You definitely want to go back, listen to what she has described, because if you listened, you probably picked up that there's this underlying theme, and it all starts within all of us. And we have to acknowledge, like you just said, we are the co-creators of everything we do. And you have to be operating from a positive place. That's so vital today, that you don't have all of the little chatter in the background telling you all the things you cannot do, because you are in 100% control. And again, you are the co-creator. You can create whatever you choose. Yeah. So that's really important.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Julie. I really enjoyed our conversation.
I did too. Thank you so much for having me on. I love what you do, and I was so delightful to be here with you.
Thank you. Everyone, go check out Called by Financial Freedom, the website and the podcast, and get that free training. This is Tami Patzer. Go make it a beautiful day.
You've been listening to Women Innovators with Tami Patzer. To learn more, please go to womeninnovatorsradio.com. And please do subscribe and share to spread the big messages and big missions to change the world.